I always believed in evidence. Hard, tangible, measurable evidence. I had built my entire life upon it. As a scientist, and particularly as a field researcher, I had spent years chasing answers in some of the harshest, most unforgiving places on Earth. And of them all, Antarctica had become my proving ground. There was something about that frozen, isolated continent that called to me. It was brutal and pure, raw and untouched. In many ways, it was like science itself, cold, exacting, and unyielding to emotion or superstition. For years I had stood beneath its pale skies, drilled into ancient ice, and unearthed secrets of the past buried deep in its frozen heart. I had seen what millennia of data could reveal, from climate patterns to fossil records, all fitting neatly into the frameworks of human understanding. To me, there was no God in Antarctica. There were no angels in the blizzards, no devils hiding beneath the snow. There was only data, facts, and the relentless pursuit of discovery. I had long since dismissed the idea of a creator, not openly hostile perhaps, but quietly confident in my conclusion. Religion was for those who couldn't handle the cold realities of life. Faith was for those afraid of the unknown. I, however, was not afraid. At least that's what I told myself. Until the day that changed everything. It began like any other research expedition. The team had set up camp near a newly exposed crevasse, eager to collect core samples. But as the storm clouds gathered overhead, most of my colleagues retreated to safety. I stayed behind, stubbornly determined to finish my readings before the storm fully descended. The winds howled louder, and the temperature plummeted faster than expected. Before I knew it, I was caught in a whiteout, my visibility reduced to inches. Panic rose in my chest as I struggled to find my bearings, but it was no use. The icy wind sliced through my gear as though it were paper, and my strength drained with terrifying speed. Frostbite clawed at my fingers, numbness spread through my limbs, and exhaustion settled over me like a suffocating blanket. I collapsed into the snow, my body unwilling to go on, my breath shallow and ragged. For a moment, I still clung to logic. Hypothermia, I thought clinically. I am dying of exposure. My mind is slipping into hallucination. But then, something happened that I could not explain, not by any scientific means. The storm seemed to vanish in an instant, replaced by an indescribable stillness. I felt myself lifted, not in body, but in some part of me I had never fully acknowledged. My consciousness rose above the frozen wasteland, and the earth faded away beneath me like a distant memory. And then I saw him, a figure of light and fire, more real than anything I had ever encountered, more undeniable than all the evidence I had spent my life chasing. His presence filled the space around me, vast and terrifying in its purity. I wanted to look away, to retreat into the safety of scientific detachment, but I could not. Because deep down, I knew who he was. It was Jesus. The very name I had dismissed, the very reality I had spent years denying, now stood before me in glory and majesty beyond comprehension. And in that moment, my entire worldview began to collapse beneath the weight of undeniable truth. His eyes met mine, and in that instant, it felt as though the very foundation of my being crumbled beneath me. Every theory I had trusted, every conclusion I had drawn, every proud declaration that life was only what could be seen and measured, fell apart like dust in a storm. There was no debating what stood before me. He wasn't a vision or a hallucination conjured by a hypothermic brain. He was real, more real than the icy winds that had torn at my flesh, more real than the snow beneath my feet. I could feel his power radiating from him, not as an abstract force of nature, but as the very essence of life itself. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. What could I say? I was a man who had demanded proof for everything, and now I stood in the undeniable presence of the truth himself. Jesus looked at me, and his gaze alone seemed to search the deepest recesses of my soul, exposing thoughts I had buried even from myself. His eyes held no malice, but they burned with a fierce, holy sorrow, a sorrow that came not from anger at my ignorance, but from grief at my willful blindness. Finally, he spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but it reverberated through me with an authority that no storm, no mountain, no force of nature could match. "You searched the earth for answers," he said, "but you never searched for me." The words cut deeper than any blade. My mind, trained to rationalize, to dismiss anything outside the realm of the material, scrambled to defend itself. But there was no defense here, not in the presence of absolute truth. Tears welled in my eyes, surprising even me. I had thought myself beyond emotion in the face of death. Yet now, faced with the eternal, I felt a sorrow so profound it shook me to my core. "I didn't know," I managed to whisper, my voice raw and trembling. I thought there was only what we could see." His eyes, full of grief and truth, never left mine. "You saw creation," he replied, "but you denied the Creator. You uncovered my handiwork in the ice, in the earth, in the stars above, yet you hardened your heart against the one who made them all." Images filled my mind, unbidden yet undeniable. Moments from my life where I had felt a quiet tug, a whisper of something beyond the physical world. Moments when the beauty and complexity of nature had stirred something deeper within me, but I had brushed it aside, calling it awe, calling it wonder, but never acknowledging its true source. I had marveled at the design, yet denied the designer. "You were not without witness," Jesus continued, his voice steady and unrelenting. "I revealed myself in all creation, in every breath you took, in every heartbeat within your chest. But you chose pride over truth." The weight of his words crushed me. I saw with perfect clarity the arrogance I had worn like armor throughout my life, the sneering superiority I had felt toward those who believed in what I once called superstition. I thought of the friends I had mocked for their faith, the lectures I had given dismissing the idea of God, the way I had prided myself on being a man of reason, all while ignoring the very reason for existence. "Why?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Why show me this now, when it's too late?" His reply carried a sorrow deeper than oceans. "Because you must know the truth. You must see what you denied, so that your testimony will be a warning to those who still have time." In that moment, I understood the terrifying weight of what he was saying. This was not just a revelation for me. This was a message for the world, a warning carried from the brink of eternity back into the land of the living, a warning that would shake the foundations of every certainty I had once clung to, a warning I could not ignore. What happened next is difficult to put into words, though I have tried 1,000 times in my mind to capture it, to explain it with the precision of the scientist I once was. But there are no formulas, no calculations, no scientific language sufficient for what Jesus showed me in that moment. He extended his hand, not toward me, but outward, as though unveiling something far beyond us both. And with that single, simple gesture, the veil of time and space was torn away. I saw the Earth, our fragile, beautiful planet, suspended in the vastness of space. At first, it appeared as I had known it. Oceans blue, continents green and brown, clouds swirling in endless motion. But as I watched, something horrifying began to unfold. Storms of unimaginable fury tore across continents. Fires raged without end. The ground itself trembled, split open by forces from deep within. Oceans churned with dark violence, consuming coastlines and cities alike. But worse than the natural chaos was the look on the faces of the people. Panic, terror, hopelessness. I saw them running, crying out for help that would not come. I saw leaders shouting into cameras, scientists desperately scrambling for answers, but their words fell into the abyss of despair. No solution could be found, no technology could save them. And above it all, I felt the unmistakable weight of divine judgment. "This is what is coming," Jesus said, his voice steady, his eyes never leaving the unfolding horror. "Not by accident, not by chance, but as the consequence of rebellion." My heart pounded in my chest, even in this disembodied state. "But why?" I asked, my voice filled with dread. "Why this? Why such devastation?" His eyes turned to me, and in them I saw the depth of sorrow only a creator could feel for his creation. Because they refused to listen. Because they hardened their hearts, as you did. Because they loved the works of their own hands more than the one who gave them life. The scenes grew worse. I saw wars erupting, not for survival, but for power. I saw nations devouring each other in greed and rage. I saw people bowing to idols of stone and idols of technology, worshipping themselves, exalting their intellect while denying their maker. Then he showed me something even more terrifying. I saw the people laughing at his name, mocking his word, twisting his truth until it was unrecognizable, until what was good was called evil, and what was evil was called good. I saw churches emptied of truth, filled instead with hollow rituals and corrupted teachings. I saw preachers who once spoke of repentance now speaking only of comfort and compromise. And worst of all, I saw myself. Not as I had been in Antarctica, caught in the grip of a deadly storm, but as I had been all my life, standing before audiences, speaking with authority, denying God while clothed in the false armor of human wisdom. I saw the ripple effects of my pride, the way my denial had emboldened others to reject faith, to turn from truth, to mock the very idea of a creator. Tears filled my eyes as the weight of it settled upon me like a crushing tide. "I didn't know," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I didn't know it would lead to this." But his gaze held firm, filled with both justice and heartbreak. "You could have known," he answered. "You were shown creation, yet you did not seek the Creator. You were given time, yet you spent it chasing shadows. And now, you see the end of that path." The vision faded, but its imprint remained, etched deep into my soul. I felt as though I had seen not just the future, but the inevitable consequence of humanity's stubborn rebellion. And I knew with chilling certainty, this was the warning I had been sent back to deliver. A warning not of what might be, but of what will be, if hearts remain hardened and eyes remain closed. As the vision faded, I found myself once again before Jesus. The scenes of devastation, of judgment, of a world spiraling into ruin, still burned behind my eyes. Even though the images had vanished, their weight remained on my chest, heavier than the cold of Antarctica had ever felt. My soul trembled beneath his gaze. I stood not as a scientist now, not as a man of data and research, but as a creation face to face with the Creator. There were no theories left to explain away what I had seen. There were no clever words to soften the crushing truth he had revealed. And yet, in that unbearable moment, I saw something in his eyes that I did not expect. Hope. Yes, even after all the visions of judgment, even after my life of denial and arrogance, there was still a glimmer of hope shining through his sorrowful gaze. "You will return," Jesus said, his voice quiet, but carrying infinite authority. You will not keep this to yourself. You will tell them what you have seen. His words were not a suggestion. They were a commission, a divine assignment carved into the very marrow of my being. But will they listen? I asked, my voice hoarse with emotion. I thought of my colleagues, my peers in the scientific community, men and women so deeply entrenched in their pride, so determined to explain the universe without acknowledging its maker. I thought of the world, rushing headlong into rebellion, ignoring every warning sign. His answer came swiftly, and it carried the weight of certainty. Some will mock you. Many will close their ears, just as you did. But there are those whose hearts are ready, whose eyes are beginning to open. For their sake, you must speak. Tears welled in my eyes again, not tears of sorrow this time, but of fierce determination. I nodded, unable to form words, but knowing with every fiber of my being that I would obey. I must obey. You will be a voice crying out in the wilderness of human arrogance, Jesus continued. You will tell them that I am coming. You will tell them to turn while there is still time. His words blazed into my spirit like fire, igniting a purpose I had never known before. Gone was the cold detachment of my former life. In its place burned an unquenchable urgency, a mission that transcended every ambition I had once held. I felt myself being pulled back, drawn away from the radiance of his presence, though my heart ached to remain with him. As I began to descend back toward the world of the living, his final words echoed through my soul, sealing the calling he had placed upon me. Warn them. Tell them the truth. Tell them I am the only way. And then, with a jolt, I awoke. Cold air filled my lungs. My eyes snapped open to see the white expanse of Antarctica stretched out around me, the sky a stormy gray overhead. I was alive. Against all odds, against every scientific explanation, I'd been given back my life. But I was not the same man who had fallen into the snow hours before. I rose slowly, my body aching, my mind still reeling from the encounter. But my heart burned with a fire I could not contain. I knew what I had to do. I had to speak. I had to warn. I had to tell the world of what lies beyond the veil of this life, of the Savior they have ignored, of the judgment that is coming. No longer would I stand in arrogant defiance of God. No longer would I hide behind the false security of human knowledge. Now, I was a messenger, a witness to the terrifying, undeniable truth. Jesus is real, judgment is real, and time is running out. If you are hearing my words, if you still draw breath, know this: turn to Him. While there is still time, turn to Him. Call upon His name before it is too late. Do not wait until you see what I have seen, until you stand where I have stood, until you carry the weight of eternal regret. The warning has been given. The choice is yours.